So what I want to talk through first of all is splits. When we're doing splits, it is really important that we're opening our hamstrings, but it's also really important that we're opening through the front of the body into our quads and into our hip flexors. We also want to be engaging through the back body and lifting up through our core so we can find some lift. And as much as we're opening hamstrings, we're also finding a little bit of engagement into the hamstrings too, and strength. There's no point stretching them all the way out and then not having any strength or power there afterwards. So in today's breakdown, I'm just going to take you through a few things that you can start to use to build towards finding your splits. So taking a couple of blocks and bringing one foot forward. Doesn't really matter too much which foot that is because you can always switch. Let your hips glide forward. Front knee over front ankle and use your hands on the block. So what we're looking for in splits is not a full kind of arch of the back, because this is going to compress into the lower back, but a tuck of the tailbone under, a lift of the pelvic floor, and a lift up and out through the crown of the head. And then letting the hips slide forward so that we're really beginning to work into that front hip flexor of the back leg. From here, we then want to open a little bit more into the right quad, not the glute, the front of the right thigh. So coming into any kind of quad stretch is really useful. So you can use your blocks, or you could bring your left hand onto your left thigh, squeeze your right heel in towards your bottom, and just catch hold of the foot. Option 1. Option 2, bring your hands around the top of the foot, press the toenails into the wrist as you squeeze the heel in towards the bottom. Another option, if your quads are feeling really, really tight and holding the foot just feels a little uncomfortable and out of reach, is using the wall as a prop. So the way that I would do this is a great way to work into your quads and to work into your hip flexors, is to bring the back leg as close as you can to the wall. And you might want a cushion to do this, depending on how solid your knees are, toes pointing up, and then step the front foot forward. Again, use your blocks, frame the front foot, stay here. And you can stay here for as long as you like, just pulling some breath into the body. When you feel it start to ease up, maybe you can start to press back. As you press back, think about curling the tailbone under, pressing the pubic bone forward so that you're hitting that right hip flexor and into the quad rather than compressing into the lower back. And you can use the press down through the left big toe mound to bring your shoulders back towards the wall. Again, staying in these stretches, staying in these postures for as long as you need, as long as feels comfortable for you, to really get into those areas. Gently slide out. So from opening up that aspect of the thigh, we want to think about opening up into the hamstrings, a little of the leg that's forward. Again, we can use blocks, fingers can be on the floor, back toes tucked under. Dig your left heel into the ground and send your hips back, moving your left leg into your half splits. Now there's no reason why this can't be your expression of the splits. One of the things that I think is really important to hold on to is that we all have different anatomy. We all have different bones. We all have different pelvises. And sometimes it's actually sort of femur bone into the pelvic socket, and there's compression, there's bone-on-bone action, which means that finding the splits might not be fully available in that kind of getting your hips to the floor. Doesn't mean that it's not the splits for you. So from this position, you can come forward, press down into the back toes, lift the knee, press down into your left heel, move your left leg towards straight, coming more into your pyramid, and then think about picking the foot up and moving it forward. Back knee comes down to the floor, hips slide back. What I'm thinking about each time I take this into a slightly deeper posture for me is dragging the outer edge of the front hip back and dragging the outer edge of the back hip forward. If you have a bolster or some cushions at home, bringing a bolster underneath the front leg, you'll see why in a moment, can be a really useful aid. So press down into your blocks, lift the back knee, slide that left foot forward, and then think about bringing your hips down onto the bolster so that you're in a more supported splits position. And again, there's no reason why you can't use blocks underneath the bolster just to lift you up a little bit higher so you can feel a little bit of stability and support here. What I'm working on is really actively trying to pull the outer edge of the right hip forward and lifting up through my pelvic floor and lifting up and out through the crown of the head. So avoiding folding forward. And I'm using the blocks as a little bit of support. I'm pressing into them to feel that lift up. When you feel ready, you can take it deeper. You can take the bolster away. And you can begin to take yourself maybe down towards the ground. When you're ready to press out, lift up, step that left foot, your front foot back, drop your back knee to the floor, and then just release. Sit back onto your heels, give your hamstrings just a moment to recover. So the next position that we're coming into is your Koundinyasana. And the reason that I'm doing this second is that you need your hamstrings and your hips to be open to access this pose. It's an arm balance. So fingers spread wide, shoulders over wrists, pressing into the floor, and the hug of the forearms towards each other. You're also thinking shifting the weight forward into the fingertips. We have way more feedback in the fingertips than the heels of the hands, so it's just cultivating and building that trust to be able to shift the weight forward. The lower part of Koundinyasana is basically a press up, so it's coming into your chaturanga. Just going to give myself a little bit of space here. So, option 1, knees on the floor, tailbone tucked under, shift the weight forward, hug the forearms towards each other, bend the elbows, and just get comfortable being in this position, elbows by rib cage. Inhale, glide back up. So practicing that 3/4 plank, lowering, elbows staying close to rib cage. Next progression, high plank, high on your toes, elbows bend, lower, elbows over wrist, shoulders forward, weight into fingertips. Inhale, strong drive up, knees to the floor. So building that strength in that base of the press up position. The next part that we need to begin to add in here to find this posture is being able to hug the inner thigh of the front leg onto the tricep. So say I have my right foot forward. I want to think about this inner thigh pressing onto the outer edge of the tricep, shifting the weight forward, maybe finding a little bit of flexion here. And you can do this with the back knee lifted, shift the weight forward, bend the elbows. There's lots of options as you build up into Koundinyasana. You don't have to float the back leg away from the floor. You don't have to fully extend the front leg forward. Option 1, come into a plank. Bring the knee to the outer edge of the tricep. Hold it here. Think about engaging through the back leg. Step back. Option 2, all the same, except lower down to the floor. And then press back up. Option 3, you're going to extend the foot forward. And the sneaky thing about this posture is that it's actually a little bit easier if the front foot is extended forward, because your legs act as a seesaw for the rest of the body. So The looser the hamstrings, the more that you can extend that front foot forward, the more accessible this posture is. So forward, shift, weight into fingertips, squeeze the back leg, and step back. I'll show you from the other side, just so that you can see that. This time, what I'm going to talk you through is the back leg. Often what starts to happen is people kick through the back leg to float it away from the floor. And when you kick through the back leg, you tend to generate too much force, and then there's the tendency to fall forward down onto your face. So rather than kicking, just think, squeeze that back leg and lengthen it as much as you can. Stretch out through the base of the big toe mound. Knee to tricep, shift forward, squeeze the back leg to float, down, press back, knees to the floor. Taking your time with all these postures, with all these variations, just to find the pose, the asana that works for you.